this country.
Yes, sir.
Now, with Binance founder Zhao pleaded guilty to violating anti-money laundering laws and was sent to prison, Binance then injected billions of dollars into Trump's family business, World Liberty Financial, and Zhao asked for a pardon and received that. I just wanted to ask you, is that a conflict of interest?
This may look like another partisan clash inside a Senate hearing, but it's actually a deeper test of how power interacts with financial accountability. What's really being tested here is whether executive authority can remain separate from private financial interests when billions of dollars and national security laws are involved. This raises broader questions about conflict standards, transparency, and institutional safeguards. In this video, we'll break down what this exchange reveals about oversight, executive power, and the boundaries between public office and private gain.
Thank you, Secretary, for coming on out here. Just the other week, you took part in talks with Russia. I guess I just wanted to ask you just your view of this. Do you agree that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was illegal and a violation of sovereignty and law?
Senator, I've been saying that since my confirmation.
That's right. Also, would you say that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal?
I've also been saying that since my confirmation.
Now, before you started, Treasury regularly targeted hundreds of actors and networks who sent critical goods to Russia's war machine with rounds of sanctions every 1 or 2 months. The previous administration added about 297 China-based entities and individuals to our sanctions list under the Russia sanctions program. I want to ask you, do you know how many you have added and designated as part of the Russia sanctions program since you came in as Treasury Secretary?
I do not, but I do know that President Trump sanctioned Rosneft and Lukoil, which was the major sanctions achievement, and dwarfs everything else, and has brought the Russians to the table for the talks that I was at last Saturday.
And you'll have bipartisan support for those sanctions, but I'll just say that there is also bipartisan support on doing everything we can to crack down on Russia's war machine, not just on the energy side. And so, as I said, the previous administration has added 297 China-based entities. This administration has added 0. That is the number 0. So I just urge you.
The previous administration was extremely weak on sanctions, and it was on record as saying that they did not want to increase energy sanctions because they were worried about the midterms, worried about the failed election of Vice President Harris, and in a display of cowardice.
I'm not asking you about that right now.
But on the way out the door, Jake Sullivan raised some of the energy sanctions. President Trump took the most bold action. So we have done more.
I'm asking you here, can you commit to this Congress that you will take action to sanction Russia's shadow fleet?
I will take it under consideration. We will see where the peace talks go.
I see how this administration has taken this maximalist approach, adding pressure when it comes to Iran's shadow fleet, talking about cutting off Venezuela's ships. I think that there needs to be consistency here. And again, there is bipartisan support for this. I wanted to just switch gears. Would you agree that money laundering is a national security threat to this country?
Yes, sir.
Now, with Binance founder Zhao pleaded guilty to violating anti-money laundering laws and was sent to prison, Binance then injected billions of dollars into Trump's family business, World Liberty Financial, and Zhao asked for a pardon and received that. I just wanted to ask you, is that a conflict of interest in your opinion?
I am unfamiliar with any of that. I wear many hats. The pardon hat is not one of them.
I'm just asking, do you see it as a conflict of interest, though?
Again, I'm not going to respond to that.
When you had the Russia talks, was Jared Kushner a part of the Russia talks?
Yes.
What is his official role in the U.S. government right now?
I believe that he is a special envoy.
So you believe that he has an official position and that is not a unpaid volunteer position?
Sorry, I believe that it is not an official position, that he is designated as an interlocutor as we bring many people into the talk.
I just raise this because this is the problem that we're seeing right now when it comes to these conflicts of interest. We see the Trump family getting involved in different roles, even though they don't have official positions. We see Pakistan now announcing that they're going to use Trump's family's companies' crypto for cross-border transactions and trade. Does that not concern you?
Again, I'd be especially interested to hear if you have any information of why Mr. Kushner is conflicted in the Russia talks.
Look, what I'm saying is that if he wants to participate in that, he should go by the same financial disclosures and getting rid of conflicts of interest that every other senior government official, including yourself, have to go through. And look, I'm just saying that when we're seeing Trump pardoning Binance founder Zhao, when seeing instead investigating Jerome Powell, when we see that Trump is now suing the Treasury and the IRS for $10 billion, he even said, I am supposed to work out a settlement with myself. That's what Trump said. Do you think that that is a conflict of interest?
That is a Justice Department issue.
No, it is suing your department.
The Justice Department represents Treasury. I would suggest you contact Justice.
With that, I yield back.
In the final stretch of that hearing, the tension sharpened into something unmistakable. Representative Andy Kim leaned in and laid out a chain of events that, taken together, painted a troubling picture. The founder of Binance pleads guilty to violating anti-money laundering laws. Billions are reportedly injected into a Trump family business. A pardon is granted. And then Kim asked the question plainly, is that a conflict of interest? The Treasury Secretary hesitated. He said he was unfamiliar. He declined to respond. And in that pause, in that refusal to engage the substance of the concern, the deeper issue came into focus. Because this exchange was never just about cryptocurrency. It was never just about sanctions or peace talks or the mechanics of executive authority. It was about trust, about whether the American people can look at the highest levels of government and believe that decisions are made for the public good, not personal advantage. Earlier in the hearing, the Secretary had affirmed that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was illegal. He agreed that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal. He spoke about sanctions and leverage, about bringing Moscow to the table. There was bipartisan language in that portion of the exchange, recognition that confronting aggression abroad requires unity at home. But when the conversation shifted from foreign adversaries to potential conflicts within our own system, the answers grew cautious, uncertain, redirected. Kim pointed to numbers: 297 China-based entities sanctioned under a previous administration. 0 added under the current one in that specific category. He pressed on consistency. Why a maximalist approach toward some nations and restraint toward others? He asked about sanctioning Russia's shadow fleet. The Secretary said he would take it under consideration, depending on where peace talks lead. Then the lens turned inward. Money laundering, Kim said, is a national security threat. The Secretary agreed. That much was clear. Yet when asked whether a pardon granted to a figure tied to such violations, especially after reported financial entanglements involving a president's family business, could constitute a conflict of interest, the room grew uneasy. This is where governance becomes something more than policy. It becomes principle. The Constitution grants the president the power to pardon. It is broad, sweeping, almost absolute. But with that power comes an expectation, not written in statute, but embedded in the fabric of democratic legitimacy, that it will be exercised without personal entanglement. Kim widened the frame. Jared Kushner's role in Russia talks, the lack of formal designation, the question of disclosures, the idea that anyone participating in sensitive negotiations should be subject to the same financial transparency requirements as other senior officials. These were not partisan barbs, they were institutional questions. And institutions once weakened are not easily restored. When Kim quoted the former president saying, "I am supposed to work out a settlement with myself," it landed with a kind of surreal weight. A president suing the Treasury and the IRS for billions of dollars. The Justice Department representing Treasury. The executive branch, in effect, entangled with itself. The Secretary's response was procedural. That is a Justice Department issue. Contact Justice. Technically correct, bureaucratically precise, but the larger question remained untouched. What happens when the lines between public office and private interest blur? In every democracy, there is a silent contract between the governed and those who govern. It is built not only on laws and votes, but on faith. Faith that the system is bigger than any one individual. That no family, no business network, no political figure stands above the ethical guardrails meant to protect the republic. When lawmakers ask about conflicts of interest, they are not merely scoring political points. They are testing the resilience of those guardrails. The American system is designed with friction. Oversight hearings, cross-examination, sharp questions asked in open chambers. That friction is not a flaw. It is a feature. It is how transparency is forced into the light. But transparency requires answers. As this hearing showed, the public is left to interpret what silence means. Does unfamiliarity suggest distance? Does refusal to comment suggest caution or discomfort? When top officials decline to engage directly with ethical hypotheticals, citizens are left with uncertainty. And uncertainty is corrosive. The stakes are not theoretical. They touch foreign policy, financial regulation, and the credibility of the United States abroad. When America speaks about corruption in other nations, about the rule of law, about accountability, the world watches not just our words, but our example. If powerful individuals can navigate around disclosure norms, if pardons intersect with business interests without full transparency, if negotiations involve unofficial actors without clear lines of authority, then the perception of impartial governance begins to erode. Democracy does not collapse in a single dramatic moment. It frays at the edges, through unanswered questions, through blurred boundaries, through the gradual normalization of what once would have raised alarms. Tonight's exchange was a reminder that oversight is not optional. It is essential. It is the mechanism by which power is questioned, examined, and, when necessary, restrained. Andy Kim asked whether something looked like a conflict of interest. The answer was never fully given. And perhaps that absence speaks louder than any prepared statement could. In the end, the strength of this republic depends not only on who holds office, but on whether those in office are willing to confront the hard questions that come with it. Power must be accountable, influence must be transparent, and the rule of law must apply evenly without exception. The American people deserve clarity. They deserve integrity. They deserve leaders who understand that public service is not a personal asset. It is a public trust. And as long as questions remain, it is the duty of Congress and of the press and of engaged citizens to keep asking them. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Support our work to expose the truth.